Well met, everyone, and welcome to the first session of the Neo-Khuzdul beginner course. As most of you know, my name is Roy, though most of you will know me as the Dwarves scholar. It's a real pleasure to see this group gathered here. Some of you may have been waiting for a very long time for this, and I'm glad we can finally get together. If you want to address me, Roy's fine, Dwarves fine, Ukshar if you're feeling adventurous, which is teacher in Dwarvish. Today we'll begin with some of the sights and sounds of Neo-Khuzdul, I would say, if you will, just to get a better feel for the language. This will give us a solid base to build upon in the coming weeks. So, what you should be seeing in the screen here is Nabhari Kaifuze. So let's start simply explaining what it is you're seeing in this first site. Well, perhaps some of you might already know. In the pre-class material, I sent two documents. One of them was how you can type these typical Dwarvish accents. And the other one was about some need-to-know info, way the class works. Some of the things I've just said were also in that document. And there were slight little hints at what this Nabhari could mean. So if anyone picked that up, then you feel free to let me know. If not, I will explain in detail. And in the meantime, I'm going to have a sip of water. If anybody has an idea of Nabhari, then feel free to give it a guess. Nabhari means learn together. So to learn, well, learning together. We learn together. That's what it means. Now, in one of the documents, learning together, those words were highlighted in, it's a bit of a puzzle, were highlighted in the first document. If you didn't catch that, hey, no worries. Nabhari means learn together. It's a verb form, by the way, that we're not even going to see in this course, but it's more for an advanced element, if you will. But why am I using it here? Because I think it's essential. I think there couldn't be a better title, if you will, for the whole course than Nabhari. Now, Kaifu is Kaifu is the word for contact or touch, while ze is first. So contact first. We're not talking about science fiction film from, I think, the early 2000s. We're talking about, this is your first introduction to the language of Neo-Khuzdul. Now, some of you have been diving into some of the materials that I have provided, have seen the video lessons of years ago. So that might not be your first touch with Neo-Khuzdul, your first contact with Neo-Khuzdul. But we're diving in as if it were. So whatever extra baggage you have, that might be beneficial. But it's by no means essential, nor is it even required. Right. So as I said, we're going to talk about or have a look at the sights and sounds of Neo-Khuzdul to get a bit of a feel for the language. So let's start with these here. So my question in Labirize is section 1 is Ku-Tati and Kud-Tati. So you can see the questions there at the bottom. Ku-Tati is who is it, and Kud-Tati is what is it. So Ku-Tati and Kud-Tati. You might notice that there's a bit of a punch at the back of my breath when I say Ku-Tati. That's the glottal stop. More about that later on. There will, by the way, be a document in the posts class material that explains to you some of the pronunciations in Neo-Khuzdul, so that you have that from the get-go as to how you should be pronouncing certain things. So that little dash, if you will, at ku at the end of the KU, and then that little dash there, that's the glottal stop. That's a letter in itself in Neo-Khuzdul, and it's actually very important because if you miss it, it can change the meanings of a word quite drastically. But anywho, enough about that. Questions here is who is it and what is it? So we're seeing quite a few things here. And I'm going to let you guys shout out what it is you're seeing in this image. So what is it you're seeing, guys? Hey, Tom Bombadil. Okay, usually people get that one at the last. So that's extra points there for you. So Tom Bombadil, yeah, that's one. Yeah, but Mithril shirt, that's already, it's who are we seeing and what are we seeing? So yeah. So Mithril shirt. And Frodo. Balin's tomb, yep. The Gates of Erebor, yep. Well, it could have been Fangorn Forest. It's Mirkwood, actually, but yeah, I mean, how are we to know, right? But yes, it's Fangorn Forest, could have been right. But it's Mirkwood in this case. Yep, we have Durin's Gate, yep. Yeah, there's Thorin Oakenshield there as well. Absolutely. Smaug the Dragon, yeah. Yep, Bridge of Khazad-dûm with Gandalf and the Balrog. There's a couple of fellas here still, and Gandalf here as well. The Doors of Durin were mentioned, and I think we've got it all covered. So let's go through what these would be in Dwarvish. So let's start with the first one. While we're diving in, let's just go for the most challenging one of the whole lot. So, Mark-Hazgzarsul. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Mark-Hazgzarsul. Let's break it down. So, Mark is shield, right? Then Azg is war. Zars is tree, and Ul is the adjective. So what we have here is shield, war, tree. Now, the war tree is another word for, or is the word for the oak, because a lot of weapons were made out of oak. So hence war tree. So Azgzarsul is oak, or Azgzars to be exact, is oak tree, and Azgzarsul is oak, the adjective, if you will. Then Mark is shield, so we have shield oaken, if you will. Hence Oakenshield. Now, Thorin notes that I pronounce it differently. I don't say Thorin, but Thorin, because there's no th sound in Dwarvish. So the typical English th sound doesn't exist in Dwarvish. It's a T with an H attached. It's a aspirated T. It's Thorin. You could also say Utran is also a name that could be used. Utran. And both have the same meaning. So Thorin and Utran. Thorin from Norse means he who dares. And Utran is the same thing. He who dares. So Utran Mark-Hazgzarsul, or Thorin Oakenshield, if you will. By the way, if you're not quite sure how these are written, it's Utran, but these will be in the notes. So after each class, I have made a post-class notes, and these will be in there. I think are actually in the class folder. So if you're not quite sure how that's written, that's in there. So the kind of difficult ones to write and all that, I noted those down, and I have those in the document. Right, let's go on to the next one. Smaug, the terrible. Now you'll notice that in Dwarvish, Neo-Khuzdul, it's Usmog. Now why is that? Why couldn't they just say Smaug, right? Because some of the sounds, too, actually, within the word Smaug are not allowed in Neo-Khuzdul. And that's, in a way, typical of Semitic languages. They do not allow, or at least of some Semitic languages, they do not allow two consonants at the onset of a word. So SM at the beginning of a word is a problem with Dwarvish. So why we allow Thorin, because TH is one sound, is one rune in Dwarvish. It's not two, it's one. So THO is, TH is one and O is one. So that's not two at the onset. But Smaug, yeah, that's a problem because we have an S and an M, can't have that. Then there's another problem, which is the AU sound. there's no such thing as ow in Dwarvish. So it's o. So smog becomes usmog. So usmog the terrible, or usmog gurud, to be exact. Right, moving on. Malkan. And there's two Malkan, which is Forodo and Sam, or Sam, to be exact. Need to mind that I don't slip into the English pronunciation of these. So there's two Malkan. One is Forodo and the other is Sam. So any ideas what a Malkan is? A hobbit, bingo, yes. So there's one Malkun and two Malkan. And it comes from the roots which means half, hence halfling. So Malkan means halflings. So it's the plural, Malkan. And Malkun, you know, it's with the same accent at the end, but instead of an A at the end, it's a U at the end. Malkun is hobbit. And why is Sam's name unchanged? Is it Sam? You know, the sound is changed, but that's it. So it's not Sam, but Sam. And why is it Forodo and not Frodo? Bingo, yes. So as I said, you know, we have to change Smaug's name because there's two consonants at the start. Frodo, same thing. So it becomes Forodo. So Forodo and Sam, Tatin Malkan, they are hobbits. There is another one in that image there, which is a fellow known as Gandalf the Grey, which in Dwarvish is Tarkun. So that doesn't sound one bit as Gandalf. It has a different meaning. Tarkun is the grey one, or the one with the staff could also be the interpretation of that. Tarkun, and he is an Udar, and an Udar is a wizard. So that's Tarkun. Again, keep in mind that it's not Tharkun. There's no th sound. There's no Thorin. It becomes Thorin, and it is Tarkun and not Tharkun. All right. So keep that in mind. There's no typical English TH sound. The next one is Erebor, and we have two names for that one. There is Urt, and notice I'm pushing on that first vowel with this glottal stop. So there's Urt and there's Urdek. So both have this glottal stop at the start. It is, and I'm not gonna, put flowery words on it. It's a difficult one to grasp at the start to get this glottal stop right, but it takes practice. So if you practice, and there will be some exercises for that later on, if you practice the sounds, the easiest way, if you don't know how to practice it, the easiest way I find, especially for English speakers, is think of the sounds in the words uh-oh. So both at the start, uh-oh, there's this sound where your glottis stops and pushes air out. That's that sound. That's that glottal stop. And again, it's very important in Neo-Khuzdul. It's not just flavoring of a word, because it can, not always, but it can change meanings of a word. And sometimes those differences are rather radical. So urt and urdek. So there's two words for these. Urt is the word that we use for the mountain itself, which means the lonely mountain. Urt. That's actually one of the words that comes from Elvish. It comes from the Elvish orod, like in Orodruin, etc. So Urt is the word for mountain. There is also a general Dwarvish word for mountain, which is Aban. So we're not saying Aban, we're saying Urt specifically for the lonely mountain. So there's, again, two words for mountain. One is Abad, the other one is Urt. You could also say Abad Zesulul, which is literally lonely mountain. But the words used for the lonely mountain is Urt, which is the mountain itself. And then there is Urdek. And Urdek is what we're talking about, the halls within the mountain. So where the dwarves live is Urdek. So Urdek is the mountain hall, if you will, and Urt is the mountain. Okay, so next one we have there is Abzag Durinul. Now, well, the other person there is Gandalf, and we already know the name for Gandalf is Tarkun. So Abzag Durinul is Durin's Bane. So Durinul, so if we see Durin's Bane, so that's the possessive. So Ul here acts as the possessive, so Durinul. And then Abzag, BZG, those radicals there, they are used for verbs like to slay, to bane, literally. So Abzag Durinul is the bane of Durin, Durin's bane. So we're talking about the Balrog specifically, obviously. Okay, so that's Abzag Durinul. Let's see what else we have. The mithril shirt was mentioned. The name for mithril in Dwarvish and Neo-Khuzdul is Sanzigil. Now, Zigil might be familiar with some of you. There's the mountain Zirak Zigil, one of the 3 mountains of Khazad-dûm, mentioned in the Lord of the Rings books, so the Zirak Zigil. So Sanzigil has that same Zigil element. So Zirak Zigil is used, it's translated as the silver tine. So Zigil is the silver color. So silver colored is what Zigil means. And sun is the element used to describe something that is perfect. So literally this means perfect silver color. That is what it means. Unblemished silver color. That is what mithril means, literally. So, in a way, poetical, because, it's unblemished silver color. It's mithril. Not to mention its strength and lightness, etc., etc. But the meaning itself of Sanzigil is perfect silver color. That's basically Sanzigil. Right, moving on. There are 2 things in this image. There is Mazalu Mazarbul, and there is Gimli Giloyinul. Right. Let's start with the name. Gimli Giloyinul. Now, Gimli, sure. Everybody gets that. Fairly simple. Giloyinul. Why do we write this like this? Yep, exactly. You can't, because they can't pronounce it like that. So it becomes Giloyinul. Again, often the sounds that you hear will try to be mimicked in a way in these pronunciations. So we have gloin, giloyinu. So again, that extended O. By the way, for those that don't know, words like usmok, urdek, giloyinu, tarkun, malkan. If you see this little hat accent above a vowel, it means we're going to stretch that vowel. So it's not malkan, it's malkan. It's not usmok, it's usmok. It's not urdek, it's urdek. It's not giloyinul, it's giloyinul. Okay, so you stretch that vowel. It's important. So Gimli giloyinul, well, that's fairly simple. So we have Gimli and then Giloyin, that's his name. And then the ul marker in this case means son of. Now we've seen Mark Asgzarsul. So the ul here makes it an adjective. We've seen Abzag Durinul. The ul there makes it a possessive, right, of Durin. And then we have Giloyinul, another way how this ul is used. So I call it, it's like the perfect tool in your toolbox is this ul thing, because it's used for so many things. It's used to mark things as adjectives, possessives, or in this case, son of, or even daughter of. Ul could be used for daughter of as well. It basically means offspring of. That's what it means. So Gimli Giloyinul. So Gimli, son of Gloin. That is what it means. Now, second thing, Mazalu Mazarbul. Mazalu is chamber of. Now notice this u at the end literally means of. So the word for chamber is mazal. Mazalu, chamber of. and then mazarbul. Mazarbul is records. It literally means that which is written. So mazarbul. And again, we see this ul here as well. And that is because it's the literal meaning is that which is written, which is also used in this sense as mazarbul. We mentioned the old forest there, the Mirkwood. Zirsin is the word for forest, Zirsin, and Tark is the word for road. So the forest road is what we see there between those trees. Oh, a bit too fast there. The forest road. There are a couple of others, that we could use there for this picture. Apart from the forest road, there's also the forest itself that we could use. So we could talk about Mirkwood or Mirkwood Forest, which is Bazir Dush Zirsin. So it's the murky forest, if you will, literally. Dush being the dark element in that word. Again, if you're wondering how that's written, it's going to be in the notes specifically. So it's Zirsin Tark, the forest road, which is the road originally connecting Khazad-dûm with the mining colonies in the Lonely Mountain and the Iron Hills. And then the forest itself, Bazir Dush Zirsin, murky or Mirkwood forest there. Now, so there's one that isn't mentioned here, but we have mentioned them earlier, which is Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil's name is not listed here, but he's in the notes, by the way. And his name is Forn, so Forn, Forn, which is not just Neo-Khuzdul, it's also ancient Norse, and it means ancient, Old Norse. It means ancient, which fits Tom Bombadil to a glove, first of all. So, hence Forn for Tom Bombadil. Okay, so section 2, Labirinu, and there's that glottal stop again. You hear me say nu, the little push at the end there. That's the glottal stop. We're going to listen to a little audio file here. Let us listen and let us look at Haburma Nakukma. And then we're going to wonder, or we should be wondering, who are we talking about here? Who is it? Kutati. Right.
Ze 1. Ala tati giloyenul bahu fund. Tati kuzd tanaki bitorin uldum. Nu 2. Ala tatya utrainul. Tatya kuzd tanakia bi urdek. Gem 3. Ala tati udar tag tifir duhu. Ramek 4. Ala tati malkun unkad nazg.
The audio here, one thing that you might wonder about is the way the speaker, the lady here, pronounces her R is differently than the way I pronounce the R in Neo-Khuzdul. Now, there's a reason for that, and I specifically wanted to include that. The person that speaks the R is a native Hebrew speaker, and I invited her to do this recording specifically because Hebrew is a Semitic language. Neo-Khuzdul was built by Tolkien to be a Semitic language. Now, there is, Tolkien did write that the R is pronounced in two ways. One is the more harsher rolled R, like we see, for instance, the word ra, could pronounce it that way, which the word means and, by the way. So haburma ra nakukma, or I could pronounce it haburma ra nakukma. So the rolling, what some call French R, the rolling R, haburma ra nakukma, one way of pronouncing it. Haburma ra nakukma, second way. So the latter, the harsher haburma ra nakukma, that is the Longbeard R. Then the Haburma Ra Nakukma, that R R is the Eastern Dwarves R. So both are accepted. So if you're feeling comfortable with the R, then go ahead, you could use that. If you're feeling more comfortable with the R, you could use that. You cannot, sadly, use the what I would call the American R because it's not one of those. So sadly, you might need to practice on one of those, whatever feels more comfortable to you. Anyway, so let's listen to that again. You might have heard her say 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we're doing here, we have 4 pictures of people. We've Gandalf, Frodo, Gimli, and Dees. And the person in question is talking about these 4, and she's putting a number in front of each of the 4 that she's talking about. So we need to link those numbers with these letters. So we've got A for Gandalf, B for Frodo, C for Gimli, D for Dees. And we need to listen and see if we can make out what it is she's saying and to whom we should be linking this. You might recognize some of the words that we've covered already previously, but let me play it one more time and then we'll go through the text specifically. So let's just play it one more time.
זה 1. Ala tati giloinul bahu fund. Tati kuzd tanaki bitorin uldum. Nu 2. Ala tatia utrainul. Tatia kuzd tanakia bi urdek. Gem 3. Ala tati udar targ tifir duhu. Ramek 4. Ala tati malkun. Unkad nazg.
Right. So before I show you the text of these, does anybody want to venture what number A would be? So most of you seem to be thinking 3, some of you 2. What about B? So most of you seem to be convinced B is 4. Then what about C? All right, then last one, D. Right, cool. Okay, let's have a look and see who's correct on this one here. So the text that we're seeing is on the first one. Ala tati giloyinul bahufund tati kust tanaki bi torinuldum. Right. Couple of things. Well, the vast majority of it, I do not expect you to understand at all at this point. But one word we've just seen, which is giloyinul. Now we know it's Gimli, son of Gloin, right? So we'll leave it there. So that seems to be linking, right? We'll see the rest in a minute. The second text that we have here is Ala tatia utrainul tatia kust tanakia bi urdek. Now, we've seen Urdek, right? So Urdek was the name of the halls within the Mountain of Erebor, right? So Urdek. So it's definitely somebody from, I'm guessing, right? Well, I'm not guessing, but it would be guess. Urdek, Lonely Mountain. Now, one thing that I want you to notice here is the first line says Tati Kust. Second line says Tatia Kust. Keep that in mind for a little bit and you'll see why that is. We also see Tanaki in the first line and we see Tanakiya in the second line. So, third line. Ala Tati Udar Targ Tifir Duhu. Udar is another thing that we saw, which is a dead giveaway to who this person would be. Then the fourth line is Alatati Malkun. Now we saw Malkan, and I explained to you that that was a plural. It says Ali Tati or Alatati Malkun Unkat Nask. And again, the Malkun kind of gives it away. So Let's listen to it once more, and then we'll show exactly who is what number here.
זה 1. Ala tati giloyenul bahu fund. Tati kuzd tanaki bitorin uldum. Nu 2. Ala tatya utrainul. Tatya kuzd tanakia bi urdek. Gem 3. Ala tati udar targ tifir duhu. Ramek 4. Ala tati malkun. Unkad nazg.
Right. Okay. Time for the big reveal. So we are seeing the first one here. The translation is, by the way, all of these start with the word Allah, and that means this. So Allah is this. So this is, and the tati is the male he is, right? This he is, Giloyinul, the son of Gloin. Bahu fund, elf friend. So Bahu, friend of, and fund, elf. So this is the son of Gloin, elf friend. Tati kust. So we saw in the first line that Tati means he is. So Tati kust, he is a dwarf. You'll notice as well that words like a, the, they're not translated. There's no need for them in the vast majority of Neo-Khuzdul. In more advanced lessons, there are elements that do indeed use that, but 99% of anything you would ever need to translate will never use it. So, for sake of simplicity, I will say there is no the, a, etc. in Neo-Khuzdul. Well, there is, but let's just forget it for now. So he is a dwarf is simply Tati Kuzd. Right. Then he comes from Thorin's halls. So we know that Khazad-dûm is the Dwaro-Delph, the halls of the dwarves of Moria. So that doom element in Thorin-Oldûm is also the same element as in Khazad-dûm, is referring to those halls. So Thorinul, Thorin's, again, it's possessive ul that we see. So Thorin-Oldûm. So Thorin's halls. And Tanaki is he comes or it comes. So Tanaki, and then the B is from. So B Thorin-Oldûm. Right, so that's so one here is clearly C. I think most of you had that right. Let's see the next one. Ala Tatia Utrainul Tatia Kuzd Tanakia bi Urdek. This is the daughter of Thrain. She is a dwarf. She comes from Erebor. So let's unpack this, shall we? So we have Allah again. So again, don't forget the glottal stop at the end, at the start, which is a bit of a push you need to give it. So Allah, this, then Tatia is. Now we see this is the son of Gloin. This is the daughter. In English, you don't really see a difference there. Is, just as the word is, and that's it. In Dwarvish, however, we're going to notice, is the person we're talking about male or is she female? Because if they're male, you use tati. If they're female, you're going to use tatia. So in this sense, and you'll see this in a lot of things in Neo-Khuzdul, and this can do your head in at times for English speakers or people that do not have that kind of reflex natively in their language. This might might take a moment to get your head around, but the is going to be split up. And a lot of forms that you see are going to be split up into various forms, which is good if you're translating from Neo-Khuzdul to English, because it gives you a lot more information in the Dwarvish than you would have in English. Because here, even if we don't know who this is, so ala tatia utrainul, I know that they're talking about a female just because it uses the female form of is. So while if we're saying in English, this is, let's say, the child of Gloin, if that would be the line, I don't know if that's a boy or a girl, right? While if it's in Dwarvish, it says Tati, well, it's going to be a boy. If it says Tatia, it's going to be a girl. So that's what I mean. It gives you more information in Neo-Khuzdul than it would in English. You'll see forms like you are split up. We'll see that later, where you have the male form, the female form, the singular, the plural, because in English, it's all you, right? If I'm addressing 2 people, 5 people, 1 guy, 1 girl, doesn't make a difference. It's all you. While in Dwarvish, every one of those has its specific form, which is a bit of, getting used to if you're not used to that kind of thing. But once you understand the logic, takes some repeating perhaps, it is an extra benefit, if you will, because you get a lot more information. Okay, so ala tatia utrainul tatia kust tadakia bi urdek. So what we're seeing here is this is the daughter of Thrain. So utrainul. So this ul element basically means the offspring of. So in this case, the daughter of Thrain. And Thrain is again referencing the Old Norse train. So utrainul, utrain. So train becomes utrain. Tatiakus. So she is a dwarf. Tanakia bi Urdek. So she comes from Urdek. Right. Let's move on with the next one here. So ala tati udar tark tifir duhu. So udar, you might recall from the first slides, is a wizard. So this is a wizard. Again, we're using tati because he's male. We're not using tatia. Tark is the word for beard. Tifir is gray. The form duhu we'll see in later lessons, but it means he has. So one of the things that often complexes people at first is the structure used where words are put. For instance, tark tifir duhu, beard gray he has. That's not a normal kind of structure for many of us. The thing with nouns and adjectives, and I've put that in the documentation as well for post-class, is almost always you'll have noun followed by the adjective, but it's in the post-class documentation as well. So those of you that had, and I think that's the vast majority, number 3 as A, spot on, that indeed is Gandalf. Then the last one, ala tati Malkun, and Malkun is a hobbit. We saw Malkan is hobbits. Malkun is a singular. Unkad Nazg. Unkad means bearer, he who carries something. Nazg is a ring. So Unkad Nazg is ring bearer. So Alatati Malkun Unkad Nazg. So if you had number 4 as B, you were spot on. I think most of you kind of got all of this correctly. So well done. Now, a little bit of an overview of why, well, not why, but how these names are transcribed in Dwarvish. So Dwalin is Dualin, Gloin is Giloin, Oin is Oyin. Again, same, the sounds here, while in English you'll have diphthongs like Oin and Gloin. In Old Norse, what the original is Gloin, Oyin. So that becomes Giloin, Oyin, right? Dane is Dain, then that becomes literally Dain in Neo-Khuzdul. So you have Nayin, Ugror, Filoi, Ufrar, Nali, Nar, Ufror, Ufrerin, Dis, Utrain, Utror, Kili, Fili, Usmog. So, and there's plenty more, obviously, but I'm just showing you the vast majority. Now you might say, okay, Kili, Fili, pretty much the same. Well, not really. The stress is a bit more on the first syllable in Neo-Khuzdul. You have Kili, Fili, because it's an extended I there, mimicking the original Old Norse yet again. Right. Next one is a bit of a sound file to listen to again. Haburma, let us listen. I've already put the text down there so that you can follow along while we listen to the conversation.
Shamuk,
Shamuk, bira shagami, ku sahati,
ati uzbat torin mark azg zarsul.
amale borin,
Bira shagami, imunzu maflat.
himne borin, batu, on, rarur, ir, nibum,
Idmedi torinuldum.
Right. I'm just going to let you guys listen to it one more time, and then we're going to dive in to what it is that we're hearing.
Shamuk,
Shamuk, bira shagami, ku sahati,
ati uzbat torin mark azg zarsul.
amale borin,
Bira shagami, imunzu maflat.
himne borin, batu, on, rarur, ir, nibum,
Idmedi torinuldum.
Right. So we have a conversation going here between Thorin Oakenshield, and someone called Borin. Right. So the first word that we're seeing there, Thorin, gives probably the simplest greeting, yet proper greeting you could give. There are a couple more that we'll see in a minute, but this one is Shamuk. Shamuk basically it comes from a verbal form, and it means let us all greet. So it's pretty much an invite to open polite greetings and introductions. That is literally what it means. And a wink to Semitic languages. Obviously, it was designed to be a bit of a wink to shalom and salam, right? Which is also the hello, if you will. But there means peace in Hebrew and in Arabic. So as Neo-Khuzdul is Semitic, every now and then there's a couple of winks in there to those languages. So Shamuk is literally means let all greet, let all start introductions, if you will. That's literally what it means, but it's common used as simply greetings or hail, if you will. Then we see Borin reply with the same thing, Shamuk, and then he says, Bira Shagam mi. Now it's important that both of these M's are pronounced. Bira Shagam mi means excuse me, or I'm sorry. So Bira Shagam mi, why do we need to pronounce these? Well, one of the things, or the both M's, one of the things that you'll notice about Neo-Khuzdul is that rarely we will skip a letter that is written. It happens, but it's very rare. Then if we were to say Bira Shagami instead of Bira Shagam mi, we would only pronounce one of these M's, and that will change the meaning. So it's Bira Shagam, you leave a little pause, mi. So Bira Shagam mi, ku sati. We saw in earlier ku tati, who is it? So ku sati, what do you think that could mean? Ku sati. Who are you? Yes. So we have ku tati is who is it, right? When we also saw that tati means he is or it is, right? So ku tati is who is it? Who is he? That is ku tati. Kusati is who are you? And sati being the male form of it. So kusati, who are you? And then he replies by saying ati. So we're seeing a little form appearing here. So we have tati, sati, and now ati. Ati uzbad torin mark azg zarsul. So ati is, anybody venture a guess? I am, yes. So ku sati is who are you? You are sati. And then ati is I am. So this ati form does not have a male or female because you're the one speaking. You're not, we don't need to split up that. I know some languages do that, but that's not in this case. So I am will always be ati. Whether the person is female or male, it will always be ati. So ati uzbat means Lord. Uzbat torin mark as zarsul. Right. Borin replies by saying amale borin. Amale comes, it's basically two words. There is amal, which means pleasure, and then a at the end, which is my. So my pleasure, borin. He then replies, Thorin then replies with birashagami, excuse me, I'm sorry, right? Birashagami. Imnzu maflat. Now, there are three consonants in a row here. M, N, Z. Imunzu. Now, I say imunzu, but there's no vowel written between the M and the N. That's one of the things I've noted in the post-class information when these not written vowels need to be introduced. And this is a very good example of that. Imunzu, or it could even be imnuzu, but more in the documentation there. Imunzu maflat. So imun is the word for name. Zu is your. So your name, imunzu, your name, and the zu there is the male form, by the way. And then he says maflat, literally kind of means something like it escapes me. I missed it. I didn't get that. That is what maflat means, right? So birashagami imunzu maflat means I'm sorry, excuse me. I didn't get your name. That is pretty much what this means. And then Borin says my name. So we saw imunzu, your name. Imne, there the sound in imun disappears. It's imne. Imne borin. So he says my name. So the A, as we see in amale. So my pleasure. Amale. Imne, my name. Borin. Batu on rarur ir nibum. What do you think he's doing here? Yep, he's spelling his name. The words you see here, the letters are basically the letters of the alphabet. So the B is batu, the O is on, the R is rarur or rarur, if you want to use that pronunciation. Ir and nibum are the letters for I and N. So he's saying batu on rarur ir nibum borin. And then Thorin understands. He says, which is just a reaction to, I get it. Idmi du Torinoldum. So idmi is the word for welcome. Du is just to. Torinoldum, Thorin's halls. So idmi du Torinoldum, welcome to Thorin's halls. Right. So this is just, again, a bit of an overview here of what we saw earlier. So Shamuk here translated as hail. You could translate it as greetings if you like. Hail, excuse me, who are you? Kusati. Then I'm Lord Thorin Oakenshield. My pleasure, Borin. I'm sorry, didn't get your name. So to be exact, your name escapes me. That's pretty much what it says. He says, my name is Borin, Borin. Idmi du Torinoldum, meaning, welcome to Thorin's halls. Right, this is a bit of an overview of the Manakag, which is the alphabet, the letter order. And here you can see the alphabet, and it starts with the glottal stop, the that is the glottal stop. Then an, siginan, batu, datu, en, siginen, fam, gatu, gamu, ham, ir, etc., etc., etc. The whole shabam. And then you might see that some of these, some of the letters that we know are not present. Like, for instance, there is no V present in any of this, right? Because it's not one of the letters in Neo-Khuzdul. Now, if you have a name that has a V in it, and you want to translate that, there are other alphabets used, then that would be the one for the Erebor script, the Angarthas Erebor, because Angarthas Erebor is used specifically to translate foreign languages, while the Angarthas Moria is used for the native Khuzdul. Right, so there is no V and P in the native Khuzdul. There's no P like in the in Arab, for instance. The letter P also does not exist. It's the same kind of thing. You see some of these features, translates from other Semitic languages into this. There is not one single word that Tolkien invented in Dwarvish that had these letters, so we're going to stick into that. One of the things that I try to do over the years is be as faithful to what Tolkien wrote. If he didn't add that, then there needs to be a pretty good reason why we add that in the extended language. If I don't have one, I'm not going to do it. That's the logic behind some of these missing letters. But if you're in the exercise, by the way, that you're going to be asked to use this alphabet to spell your name. If one of those letters is missing, just put the English one. We're not going to go into detail on the other alphabets for this time being. Right. The next thing, I don't want to rush it. If anybody has a question, feel free. The next thing I want to do is just give an overview of what it is we've seen so far into I am. Now, some of these we haven't seen, or one of them specifically we haven't seen, the rest we have. But so what we've seen in the previous section is ati, I am. We have seen you are, we've seen two forms of you are, or actually we've seen one form of you are so far, which is the male one, sati. There's also a female one, female version of you are, which is satya. So if I'm talking to my sister and I'm saying to her, you are friendly, I have to say satya bahul, right? Because I'm talking to a female, so I'm using the you, the female version of that. You need to take into account this is a reflex you will not have in English because it's just you, right? It doesn't matter if it's male, female, singular, plural. Well, that, there's a distinction to make in Neo-Khuzdul, so keep that in mind. Then there is he is, or also it is, which is tati. We've seen that several times. And then we've also seen tatia, which is she is. Okay, so we've got three of the basic forms of to be right here. So it's ati, sati, satya, tati, tatia. So I am, you are male form, so male singular, which is ms. Then you are female singular, he is, she is. We're not going to get into the plurals yet. Right, so I want to go through some live exercises with you folks here, just to cover what we've seen with the to be forms. So the first one is, he is Smaug, the terrible dragon. Now, what I want you to do is not just say if it's Tati or Tatia or Sati or Satya, because that would be a bit simple. I'd like you to cover the line for me. So the terrible dragon, by the way, is, so Smaug, the terrible dragon, is Usbog Usluk, and Usluk is the word for dragon. Gurud, terrible. So Usluk Gurud, dragon, terrible. So anybody want to cover this? First of all, you're going to have to venture a guess if it's Tati, Tatia, Sati, Satya, or Ati, and then finish the line for me. Yep, bingo. Tati Usmog Usluk Gurud. So he is Smaug. So Tati is he is. So Tati Usmog Usluk Gurud. Next one is Uzbatnata Dis. Uzbatnata is the word for princess. So Uzbat, as we saw earlier, is Lord. Nata means daughter. So Lord daughter means princess. So she is the princess Dis. Keep in mind, like in the first line, we did not translate the in the terrible dragon. We're also not going to translate the as in the princess. So we're just saying she is Uzbatnata Dis. Yep, Tatia. Tatia Uzbatnata Dis. She is Tatia. Right, the next one has two of them, so we're kind of cranking up the level here. I am Dwalin, so I am Dwalin, because Dwalin we can't say because the W counts as your second consonant. You are Dis. Correct. And these, and then bir at the end. Bir means correct, clear. Did you get it? That is what bir means. Correct, right, clear. That is what it is. So I am Dwalin, you are these. So ati Dwalin, I am Dwalin, right? Then you are these. This is the female form, so you're correct. Satya, because that's the female form. These bir, correct. So spot on, nicely done there. Right, next one. You are Thorin, the brother of these corrects. Now, what we're seeing here is Thorin, Karmu. Karm is the word for brother. Karmu, brother of. The U there at the end stands for the of. Karmu, these, bir. Again, bir meaning correct, clear, understood. That's basically what bir means. So you are Thorin, the brother of these corrects. Spot on. It is Sati Thorin. You are the male form, so Sati Thorin Karmu dis bir. Right, next one, and we're nearly at the end of our session here. Saktibim Gukukuishmek. Do you know the manners of greeting? This is a bit of a giveaway, I think, with the images, but oh well. Bakken Galik. So we're seeing Bakken Galik, Noord Galik, Lans Galik, Zanun Galik. Shamuk we've already seen. So Shamuk we should be able to translate already. So this is one of the manners of greeting. Yep. Hail, greeting, let us greet, let us give introduction. Basic translations will usually be hail or greetings, right? So that's Shamuk. Then then we see two of the more familiar, because Shamuk is a bit formal, right? It's a bit of a formal greeting. You're not going to say Shamuk to like your best buddy. Oitarktir is a lot less formal. Literally, it means, hey, beard there. That's what it means. Targ is beard, tir is there, and oi is hey. So oitarktir is, hey, you beard, hey, beard over there. That's what it literally means. So it's just hi, it's what you would say. You're not going to say that to Lord Thorin Oakenshield, right? Unless he's a real good buddy of yours. And you could obviously shorten that down to just oita, right? So oitarktir, oita. So hi, hey. It comes from, hey, beard over there. Hey, you beard. So it's something you would say among dwarves as a very informal greeting. So those are the basic greetings. But then we have the times of the day. So Galik means good, right? So we have Bakken Galik, Noord Galik, Lans Galik, Zan Galik. Let's start with the very obvious one. Zanen Galik. What would that be if you look at the image there? Yep, that's pretty clear. That would be night. Now, the rest of them, I mean, we could venture a guess. I think Lanus and Bakken, yeah, it depends, I guess, on where you are in the world. Sometimes you'll have very pinkish sunrises. Sometimes it's going to be evenings. But I tried to pick an image which is kind of general. But let's go through these. So Bakken Galik, Bakken is the dawn, the morning. So Bakken Galik is good morning. Noord Galik, by the way, it's Bakken. Again, there's this sound with the schwa sound, which is very frequent in Dwarvish, but it's not written, at least not in Latin script and also not in runes in most cases. I've noted down in the document there why or when you would use that when it's applicable. So that's going to be in the post class documentation. So Bakken Galik is good morning. Noord Galik is good day. So Noord is day, right? Lanus is, again, Lanus, so not Lans, Lanus. Lans Galik is good evening. And then Zannen, we already had. Zanun, again, this schwa sounds comes in. Zannen Galik is good night. So we have good morning, good day, good evening, good night. And then hey, or, well, not hey, but hail or greetings. And then hi and hey, so oitartir, or just simply oita. That is what you'd hear amongst friends. Okay, now the last thing here is put a couple of pictures up of rather well-known faces. We have Dis, Kili, Thorin, Ori, Dwalin, Bilbo, Bofur there. And I put a couple of adjectives there. Now, what I want you to kind of create, if you will, is what strikes you as being correct with these. So I'm just going to give you one example here. Thorin, Tati, Bazur, right? Thorin kind of looks a bit sad to me in this one, right? So sad is Bazur. So I'm just going to go through these adjectives so you know how they're pronounced. Khuzrul is angry. Gedul is happy. Bazur is sad. Makshul, surprised. Gurdul, fearful. Abnamul, beautiful. Agmakul, funny. So Khuzrul, Gedul, Bazur, Makshul, Gurdul, Abnamul, Agmakul. That's it. So what I want you to do is use the forms of to be that we've seen. So in this case, it's going to be Tati and Tatia. I mean, because we're talking about, he is or she is specifically. And just, give me an example. You could pick any of these and just tell me what you think. Beaufort is funny. I'd say that, yeah. Beaufort Tati Agmakul, yeah. Well, to be honest, he's got a funny hat and funny whiskers. So, I mean, he's got two things going for him already. Yeah, that's Dis is beautiful. So Dis Tatia, nice one, well spotted. Abnamul, she's beautiful. Any others you guys want to give a go? Yeah, he kind of looks angry. I would agree. Dualin Tati Khuzrul. I mean, you wouldn't want to face him in a dark alley, I think. It just... So we've covered these. Kud Akat. Akat, by the way, is faces. We've seen Ku, which was who. Now we see Kud, which is what. So we also saw that in the first slides. Ku Tati, Kud Tati. Who is it? What is it? Right, so that is it for this week. Now, what I would like you to do for next week is, first of all, read this again, and you will get post-class materials. There's a lot of stuff in the post-class material, things that I've explained, names that I've written down for you so that you know what you're talking about for the specific, how it is written on some of these words. Then you also find the audio fragments that we had in the class. There are exercises. And then there's also flashcards. I've made flashcards for each of these lessons. One thing you need to take into account for all of these lessons, I counted them, there are about 400 nouns and adjectives and adverbs and about 200 verb forms that we're going to cover. That seems a lot, and to be honest, it is. But we're covering that in a period of 9 sessions. And it really is important to get going with those flashcards to retain as much as you can of it, because otherwise it's going to be a mess of words which is going to stack on top of each other. So tasks of Azatuk Hadet Nurt. We saw Nurt, by the way, just earlier. Nurt Galik. Anybody can remember what Nurt was by any chance? Day. So Hadet Nurt literally means 7 day. So a 7 day is a week. So Azatuk Hadet Nurt Gajij. Gajij is next. So week next. So tasks of week next. That's what it means. And then practice with those flashcards. I mean, you don't. The good thing is, it comes. You could even put it on your phone. It comes with an app, so it's pretty handy. So you could practice with those flashcards. The way the flashcards work, by the way, is they show you the words. Then you need to say if you know it or not. If you know the translation of it, then it's going to show you the translation. If you were spot on, you rate it as a 5. If you weren't quite sure, you can rate it as a 3. And if you were horrible and missed, you could rate it as 1. And for every one of these flashcards, it's going to repeat those that had low scores. And it's going to, lock those in that you marked as 5 that you knew. And it's going to push those aside. So it repeats those that you didn't do well until you have a mastery of 100. One thing that I do want to say about these flashcards, don't move ahead too quickly. I know it's tempting because you're going to see the content of lessons 1 to 9, the flashcards there. Stick to lesson 1, please. That's going to be already a lot of words in those flashcards. Again, the flashcards are optional, but I really recommend you doing them because it's going to help you not just remember words, which obviously is a vital key to learning a language, but it also will help you see patterns in words that you might otherwise have missed, right? And patterns, as we'll find out in the next couple of weeks, is a rather vital element to this language. But again, we're focusing more on what we see, what we hear, instead of the patterns that we, that are part of the key structure of Neo-Khuzdul. All right, so that would be it for this week. Right, have a good one, guys. Thanks again for joining the first session, and I hope you enjoyed it, and catch you all soon.